Let's talk about some new rules for some of the strongest Craft World units currently. They're both getting new models, but the new Codex might be a bit of a side grade. The Dark Reapers in particular look like they might have eaten a bit of a nerf. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about some more Aeldari rules. Again, these are datasheets reportedly leaked from the playtester version of the Codex. A few more hints of what is to come, though of course there might be a few subtle changes between these and their final incarnations. Dark Reapers and Shining Spears are the two aspect warriors that Games Workshop have got round to regenerating this time, and as they're perhaps the two most competitive aspect warriors right now, I was very interested to see how they might be reimagined. First up we'll start with the Reapers, then go on to the Shining Spears. So Dark Reapers have consistently been one of the Aeldari units to field throughout 8th edition and 9th, one of the few aspect warriors that can really overcome their very fragile profile. These guys, just by hiding really far away, hopefully outranging most threats, and being a really good choice for firing and fading back behind terrain. The Tempest launchers can give some really decent ignores line of sight firepower for clearing light infantry, and ignoring modifiers on some very generalist profile weapons almost always means that they're going to be somewhat useful. It does appear that the unit has had a bit of a shake-up, a few things may be slightly side-graded, but a couple of their special abilities have taken a bit of a hit. In this new leaked version, Dark Reapers remain a heavy support choice, 150 points per squad, and you do pay the points cost per squad now. Similar to things like the Tower Fire Warriors and Pathfinders in their book, you can now no longer take any more or less than the standard amount. You can only take 5 Dark Reapers, you can no longer only take 3, or build the squad out for 10. That's definitely a bit of a weakness right off the bat. A medium unit certainly isn't terrible, but it means that they don't make quite as efficient use of the massive buffs that they can get, and it means that they're not really going to be efficient just for using Tempest launchers and taking multiple small units for the main reason to get more Exarchs with them. It does appear that they've received a small points boost though. Currently they're 32 points per model, so going down to 30 points each is a little bit of a drop. Their important stats are largely unchanged. They have received the standard Aspect Warrior upgrade of getting a 5+ invul save, and also getting an extra attack as well if the enemy does manage to get close. The attacks may be a tiny bit meaningless, but the invul save will give them a little bit more durability against very high AP weapons. For their standard Eldar special rules, they do have Strands of Fate, could be handy for a saving throw or a wound roll maybe, but as with their current version, they do remain not having battle focus, so they aren't going to be a unit that you're going to be able to jump, shoot, jump, popping in and out of terrain and firing off shots. I guess out of most of the units, these are the guys who could perhaps use this the best. I'm not surprised that Games Workshop hasn't given them access to it. They didn't have it before, after all. Though I think you'd still be able to use the new Eldar equivalent of Fire and Fade to jump them back into terrain if you need to. Obviously though, that stratagem is going to be a bit less efficient if you're only applying it to a unit of 5 rather than a massive unit of 10. Weapons-wise, things haven't changed too much. The Reaper launcher is exactly the same as it used to be, so is the Tempest launcher, though the Tempest does only cost 10 points extra now, so that is kind of handy for the Exarch. The Exarch also has the option of swapping out for an Aeldari missile launcher or a shuriken cannon for free. Really though, the main downside comes in their special rules. As a minor damage loss, the Exarch no longer innately re-rolls ones to hit for his attacks, though perhaps more importantly, the Dark Reaper's ignores modifiers rule has got considerably worse. Now rather than ignoring all modifiers, they only ignore dense cover, so it means that if your opponent has a -1 to hit modifier coming from somewhere else, they're still going to be hitting on force, and just for their base squad, they're no longer able to move and shoot for no penalty. You can get that back though via an Exarch power, but you have to pay more points for it. It really is a serious nerf though. It makes them a lot worse against a whole bunch of targets, anything with native -1s to hit or flyers, and ignoring the penalties means that they won't like their standard tactic quite so much, which was hiding behind terrain, then moving forward to unleash a powerful volley. Speaking of Exarch powers though, it appears that the Reapers have 3. First up, a 25 point extra damage dealing one. If you're carrying a Reaper launcher or a shuriken cannon, you get an extra shot, or you get ignores cover for a Tempest launcher or an Aeldari missile launcher. All of those are nice buffs to have, though to be honest I don't really think that they're worth the 25 points, not unless you want to get every iota of damage output into the squad and you're planning on putting lots of buffs on them. Out of those, I think probably the best option is the +1 shot on the Reaper launcher's heavy profile. That'll be an extra strength 8, AP -2, damage 3 shot. For 15 points, the Exarch can pick up +1 to wound on his weapon. That actually genuinely looks like it could be worth it on the Tempest launcher. That'll make that 2d6 profile really quite good at clearing enemy chaff hiding out of line of sight. I feel like that could be potentially popular. And finally there's the 15.1 for move and shoot with no penalty. That one applies to the entire squad, not just the Exarch. Overall, we would have to weigh this up with the buffs and synergies for the rest of the Codex. Maybe there will still be enough powerful buffs here to make them into a brutal ranged killing machine, but on their base profile they do seem like they're a weaker unit now. A tiny points cut and a 5+ invul save don't really make up from losing the ignores modifiers and Exarch rerolls, I think. The squad size thing doesn't seem particularly helpful either. Moving on, we come to the Shining Spears. I must admit I do really quite like these new models. I think this helmet crested Exarch looks really nice indeed. They're a fast attack choice as before, still cost 35 points per model base, and like really quite a lot of other biker style units, they are a bit more limited in squad size now. You only get 3 to 6 of them. You can't get up to 10 anymore. Their profiles still look really quite interesting, but I will bear in mind that it sounds like they're going to be losing some important warlock buffs. They had 2 psychic powers that were absolutely mental on them. First one for Quicken for double moving and still being able to charge. It meant that they could threaten just about anything on the board. And also the Protect one, I would be very surprised if that enhances their invul saves anymore. Previously they could actually be very tanky indeed, with a 3+ invul against ranged weapons. Still though, despite that, their profile has seen some significant upgrades. They remain at the very zippy 16-inch movement, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 3, toughness 4, 2 wounds apiece. Their attacks have been buffed up to 3 per model, they used to be 2, leadership 8, a 3+ save, and a 5+ invul. Previously they had a 4+ invul save that was only good against ranged attacks. Now the 5+ will apply to both range and combat, and they've also acquired a new rule which gives them a -1 to hit against ranged attacks instead. Overall, as a profile, I'd say it's a slight upgrade, certainly going to be a bit more vulnerable to certain ranged attacks, but a bit tankier in melee, and going from 2 attacks to 3 is a pretty major damage boost. They have the Eldar special rules that you'd expect, Strands of Fate, which seems good to lock S6 into your charge roll, Battle Focus if they're making more use of their ranged weapons, which actually really aren't too bad, and like most bikers, if they advance, they auto-advance 6 inches. If there's any options for advance and charge in the Codex, they'll certainly like that. Otherwise, they're a core biker unit with fly, and the Exarch does give you the standard upgrades. It's still a big 3 wounds, so quite a tanky model, and also very threatening in his own right with a big 4 attacks. Weapons wise, the base profile of the Laser Lance has got a very small upgrade. It's now strength 4 when you're not charging and strength 6 when you are, so a little bit better if the enemy charges you rather than the other way round. They're still pretty fantastic marine killers. For 105 points just armed with the basic Laser Lances, you should kill 4 or 5 dead Space Marines with average rolling, and that's not even taking into account all their shooting, which is actually quite good. For a dedicated combat unit, they do still have pretty powerful close-range firepower. The Laser Lance remains unchanged at a 6-inch single shot. The Shuriken catapults get the buff that all the rest of them get, 18 inches, AP -1, going up to AP 3 on 6s. They're certainly looking like they'll remain a unit that can easily fry an enemy infantry unit and then charge something a bit more elite. For the Exarch weapons, there's a few different options. The Paragon Saber Power Sword that the Exarch can take has been buffed a bit, as well as re-rolling all hit and wound rolls like it could before. It's now +1 strength and +1 attack as well. Against a lot of infantry, that actually makes it a fairly similar choice to the Laser Lance. It does fall down a bit though against anything with toughness 5 or 6 and multi-wounds. Still though, kind of cool to see that it's actually somewhat well balanced now. The Star Lance you can still take for +10 points, essentially a Laser Lance with strength 8 both at range and in melee. No joke at all, or an Exarch with 4 attacks. The Exarch can take a Shimmer Shield for 5 points, which gives him a 4+ invul save. Again, not terrible on a 3 wound model, and only the Exarch can swap out his Shuriken catapults for a cannon. Finally, power-wise, like all the rest of the Aspect Warriors, there's 3 different upgrades that you can give the Shining Spear Exarch. For 20 points, the unit can have +1 to hit in the fight phase, generally going to be a 25% buff to the damage of the unit, maybe a bit more useful on a unit of 5 and 6 than a unit of 3. They do need to be charging to be able to get that benefit though. For 15 points, the Exarch generates 1 mortal wound on each wound roll of a 5 or 6 that he makes. Seems like that one's aimed to pair with the Paragon Saber. If you're wounding on 5+ anyway, then that's going to average actually 2 or 3 mortal wounds on the enemy each turn. And I believe that for certain targets like toughness 7 vehicles, it actually means that an Exarch with the Paragon Saber and this will actually do more damage on average than one with a Star Lance. Of course, the Paragon Saber is likely to be a lot better against 1 wound infantry. It genuinely looks like it could be a fun way to equip the Exarch. Finally, for +20 points, you can get an extra 6 inches on your Consolidate move. Really quite a big investment in movement shenanigans, but if you do manage to hit a unit and then kill it, that could give you a really decent chance of either getting onto an objective, tying up an important enemy unit, or maybe just getting yourself back to safety if the positioning works out okay. 9-inch movement really is quite a lot. To be honest, I think all of those do seem usable. I think that the Paragon Saber Mortal Wound Blender Exarch could be quite fun. Overall, I think I'm a lot more positive about these guys than the Dark Reapers. They just seem really quite efficient on raw stats alone, never mind what buffs you give them. Lurk them behind terrain, jump out 16 inches, shoot something and charge something else, and I think against a lot of armies you'll have probably made your points back then and there, never mind if they actually absorb a bit of fire or the enemy can't target them next turn. Damage 2 weapons might not be the best against everything, but they'd certainly be handy enough in certain matchups. So let me know what you think about the new rules down in the comments below then. How do you feel that these guys stack up against the various other aspect warriors? And let me know any other hopes and fears for the new Codex. Hopefully we'll get a few more Eldar details over the next couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to reviewing the Codex in full once it's out, so feel free to subscribe to Allspecs Tactics if you'd like to see any more like this and that full review. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Allspecs Tactics does have a Patreon page, which is how I can afford to spend quite so much time making quite so many videos for you guys. If you are enjoying regularly, then any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.